They say.
Meeting room will come to order. Thank you all for attending either in person or virtually this meeting of the Twin Lakes School Corporation Board of Trustees. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item I have under public participation this evening, we have a highlight from Mayor Kathy Gross regarding the Twin Lakes High School staff. Mr. Galvin, would you care to give us some information about that, please?
Yes, so our Twin Lakes High School staff was recognized this week from Mayor Gross for the Monticello Beacon of Light Award, and for all that our staff does for their students here at the high school. And so we wanted to recognize our high school. Mrs. Whitehead is with us this evening and congratulate them on an outstanding job for what they do for our kids here at the high school. So also I wanted to recognize, oh, my fault, go ahead.
Just kidding, see ya.
Kudos, kudos.
Also, I wanted to recognize a couple of our, three of our board members who have achieved some recognition with the Indiana School Board Association. We had Mr. Godlove and Mrs. Kennard, who both received, I think, the beginning level. And this is achieved through taking classes, watching webinars, and they get so many points for each of those. And then also Mr. Andrews has achieved one of the levels within that Indiana School Board Association recognition too. And so that says a lot for our board members that they're working hard to learn about the different things. But I appreciate everybody of what you guys do and stuff, but I want to recognize those three individuals this evening and their dedication to our corporation and the students and the staff here. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Second item would be Patron Concerns. Ms. Metzger, did we have any comments or questions emailed into you that you're aware of this time? Okay. For those watching at home, since you can't be here in person, if you have a question or a comment to present to the school board, hopefully you've been made aware through the website and some other media that you can email to our assistant superintendent, Deb Metzger. Since we can't have you here in person, we encourage you to access us in that way if you have anything you think the board should know about or comments you can make. Moving on to section 3, we have our consent agenda. I guess I would ask Mr. Galvin at this time of year, do we have any last minute changes to any of these, whether personnel or transfer tuition or things?
Yeah,
like
I just kind of wanted to point out a couple of things that were added. The consideration of the cargo van purchase that was brought on. We wanted to get an updated cost on that, so I believe that was sent out. And then down underneath the reoccurring items for action, Mr. Godlove had asked about meat purchases on Thursday evening. I spoke with Mrs. Craig. Pretty well almost all of our meat is purchased through commodities. The government really dictates to us what we can pay for meat.
Good.
So we get a very good, whatever they're giving us.
On the cargo van, I didn't see any kind of a price in there that what we brought, that was in the email.
It was there, John.
Was it there?
It's
Yeah.
the same price.
Oh, okay.
So,
2,800 or
Because
20,000.
I didn't see the price, I just, when I,
yeah,
But we might also comment that the lift is additional.
correct.
Oh.
So
That's not included in the price of the vehicle. There's the vehicle and then the lift.
but I like the fact that that lift is gonna be inside and not
Yeah.
outside too.
Yeah.
Yep. So the price for with the fleet incentives was $28,831, and then the lift was going to be an additional $3,900. So.
And this will be used by the IT department during the week. So it's not just gonna be sitting, you had asked that in previous meetings,
Right.
that if we got a new vehicle, then you would like to see it
Used.
utilized in other ways. So the IT department will be using it throughout the week, and then band, choir, whoever needs it, then will use it on the weekends. And they said they would have their materials. I talked to Mr. Sheffield, and he said he would have that cleared out so that it could be used, so. And the van they're using, is about ready to fall apart and step through the floorboard, so they're gonna need something different as well, so that kind of give you information on that as well.
Deb, what about the proper loading of the trailer and the balancing of the trailer with those adjustable hitches and so forth? Is that training that you all are putting in
Those,
place?
everyone will have to be trained on that, yes.
Yeah.
And no parents or anything are hooking trailers up.
Okay.
Like in the past. And we had that process since Josette and I have taken over transportation. They have not hooked trailers up. So.
So you'll have sign off on it and so forth, certification, okay.
Couple of other items down there, letter D, underneath special education services, the letter of agreement between Twin Lakes School Corporation and Delphi School Corporation. Mrs. McElrath brought this forward. This is our contract with Delphi for those students that come over here, and what they'll be paying for us, and we included that in your packet so that you knew what was going to be paid to the corporation. Letter E is, this is a requirement for, Donna, you want to talk a little bit about that resolution for the excess costs?
So, on occasion, we may encounter a student that we cannot provide services for here on campus, and we may need to seek out a day treatment program or possible residential program. And when we do that, we have the ability to ask the state for funding. And part of that application is to have the school board's permission to apply for that application. So I'm asking that Mr. Galvin be able to sign that on behalf of the school board so that we can process that application quickly.
And then number 6 down there is our E-rate contract. We have this on an annual basis, and this is just the contract that we have with AdTech to provide our internet service. So, if there's any other questions, I can answer those.
Any questions or needs for additional information on your consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Gloria. Been properly moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, the same.
Opposed.
Thank you, Maureen. Motion carries 6-1. Okay. All right. Moving into the business portion, under old business, I have the corporation safety plan.
So Jason and I were just talking about that because of the COVID-19, we've kind of put that onto the back burner for right now. So we're going to be working on some times and when we can start that back up to begin working with our local agencies to get that done. So.
Okay. Is there a goal in mind of start? I know finish can be a pretty moving target, but
Yeah, the sections that we're up to is mainly reunification. So that's the section we're to. I think as far as protocols and everything, we've got everything in there. We were just talking about that most likely would probably be, I'll go ahead and let you talk, Jason.
No, I was just coming forward to the microphone to pick it up. That's the unknown. We're still trying to reopen the city fully. Those are the unknowns as we move forward on this. I'd like to think once we go July 4th fully open, fingers crossed that we can shortly thereafter get a meeting together and Charles try to open school at the same time and how that looks. So we're going to have to just partner on this, look at some dates, probably take a half hour with all of us to revisit where we were, update each other on that, make sure those, the last set of things we wanted in the actual plan were there, work on that communication plan and hammer it out. I don't know when we're going to be able to do the tabletop. We can talk with the EMA and all the partners in that as well. I'd like to get it in this year, but I can't put that on your staff with everything you're going on right now, especially prior to Labor Day. There's just no way. So I think we'll just work through that with each other and hopefully come back maybe next month with plans on for you.
we appreciate the clarification. Thank you. Any other questions on the corporation safety plan? Hearing none, we can move on to new business, which the first item I have is the consideration of school calendars, both the 2021 calendar revisions and the 21-22 calendar. We'll take these items separately, please.
Yeah, very good. Okay, first up is the 2021 school calendar revisions. And the only revisions that we made in this calendar were the e-learning days that were originally scheduled on September the 17th for the high school and for the entire corporation on October the 16th. Those 2 days are now in session, regular school days. The 14th and the 15th will be parent-teacher conferences of October, and we'll have dismissal at 1 o'clock for all grades on those days. So those are the only revisions that we had in that 2021 calendar.
And for the packet that we received at our work session, that's going to be the second calendar?
That would be the second calendar with the full week of fall break.
Okay. Obviously, we've had significant discussion on this issue. We're certainly able to take all the time we need tonight if there's additional discussion warranted. Are there any concerns, comments? Did anyone care?
And this was brought to us by TLCTO.
Correct. The TLCTO and building level principals and administration all work together to put this together.
And we can always change, I mean, with opening of school and what's happening there, this will be tentative
Correct. So.
because of,
Yeah. So like Dr. McCormick has shared in her guidance as well as the webinars, it may be a fluid situation.
that's what it's,
Yeah.
so we're open.
This is the plan until the state tells us it can't be the plan.
Our goal is, and I shared this with our administrative team today, is our goal is to begin school on August 10th. So I think pretty well everybody wants to get back to some normalcy.
Questions or comments regarding the proposed revision to the 2020 and 2021 calendar?
I think I would just say that I think changing this upcoming October would probably be too soon, or not enough notice. So I will probably change my view from the previous meeting we had.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I'll make a
Hearing none.
motion that we accept it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosca. The motion has been made that we accept the 2020-2021 school calendar revisions as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Motion carries 6-1. Scott, were you the second on that one?
I was.
Thank you. Moving on, we have for our consideration the 2021-2022 school calendar.
So this evening, what I am bringing forward as recommendation is, once again, with the TLCTO and the administration all work together on, it is with corresponding dates compared to the 2020-2021 calendar, once again with a full week of fall break, and we have eliminated those e-learning days that were originally in last year's. Once again, a 1 o'clock dismissal of all grades for parent-teacher conferences. So that's what we are bringing forward for this evening's recommendation.
If you're following along in your packet, this is calendar 3, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You have your recommendation. At this point, I will entertain a motion to accept as presented, or we had some discussion about tabling it for discussion. This would be the appropriate time for that if you so desire.
My only question is, should we table this decision until we find out what October next? We have plenty of time. Don't we?
Although I don't want us to be in the same boat we got into this time, where I felt like we waited too long to make a decision. I do want to have a plan in place, I think,
Right.
and then we can watch it, would be my thinking.
It forced us 2 years ago when we made the discussion that we didn't like the calendar, and then it was postponed and delayed late until it came before us, and we were back at it again. So,
What is the reasonable period of time to have this done in advance? I mean, what's the goal or what's the standard?
So usually when we bring this, and it was mainly because of the COVID, we usually try to shoot for April, and that's bringing this calendar for a year out, to where people have 2 years of a calendar going into next school year.
So we're already 2 months out.
Yeah. And like I said, that was the COVID. We had them ready to come forward in April.
But this is the recommendation.
Okay. Further thoughts or comments on the situation?
I personally feel like if this is the recommendation, with all the work that went into it, I make a motion to we approve.
Okay. Motion has been made to approve the 21-22 school calendar as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been properly moved and seconded. It is still eligible to be tabled if you so desire. Hearing none, it's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the 21-22 school calendar as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? Aye. Motion carries 5-2. Thank you very much. Next item we have would be the consideration for the high school to switch software platforms from Apex to Edmonton.
Ms. Whitehead, you want to share anything on this software switch?
The only thing is, the Edmonton program actually lines up with the Indiana standards where the Apex program doesn't, and most of the schools are moving towards the Edmonton program, so I think that seems to be the recommendation from around the area. I'm happy with what I've seen so far with Edmonton.
Thank you. All right, you've heard the recommendation. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maury. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gloria. Properly moved and seconded that we switch from Apex to Edmonton. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 7-0. Item 3, consideration for the Indiana MAC program, which is Medicaid reimbursements.
So this is connected in with our special education program, so I'm going to have Mrs. McElrath kind of explain this to you.
INMAC is a second type of Medicaid reimbursement, and it is Indiana's Medicaid administrative claiming. So it is a way for us to claim some time that we spend with children that need Medicaid services and be reimbursed for that. It is not associated with the actual service provided. So that's where Go Solutions, which we've been using for the last 6 to 8 months, that program is associated with fees. This program is not. So what it is a random survey, and we have eligible about 50 employees, and it's random, and it's by the state. They're the ones that provide the survey, and it takes about 10 minutes to complete. But what they do is they send you an email and they say at Thursday at 10:05, we'd like to know what you're doing. And you answer the questions, and if it has something to do with a Medicaid service, such as you're helping a child with feeding, or you're helping a child with toileting, or you're helping a child physically move. So things like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and language therapy. If it falls in one of those categories, then that's data that the state of Indiana is collecting. And then they reimburse us for that time that we spent completing that survey. So it's new to Twin Lakes. Other districts have been using it, and it's just a way to get a little bit more reimbursement. I have no idea actually of how much that's going to provide us. This first year would just be something that we would look and see if it's worth our time to do.
Donna, this is the same thing that we had a class for the testing and speech people and the money that they made, and then same thing we're doing in a lot of other corporations right now. And there's a lot of money that comes in for that, especially from speech. You know, I've seen a lot of times where our speech therapists have been able to buy, very expensive instruments through this money. Usually the money goes right back into something that your school psych, your speech, or OTPT need. So it's nice to be able to buy either, whether it be instruments, or sometimes it might even be some kind of, looking at some kind of research, or, some kind of, a journal or a book or something that might be necessary. So I have found through the years that we've been doing that, it's been very beneficial, and it ends up being a substantial amount of money sometimes. And by the end of the year, you're really glad that you had it. And it ends up being something that doesn't come out of our corporation money at all, which is nice.
That's what I was on. There's no fee involved on our part. So do we have to vote on something?
Yeah, it's a contract.
I believe we have to
It is a
accept the
contract. So, but there is
It'll
a
be a
contract.
contract.
Okay, that's what I was, yeah, we have a contract.
All right, you've heard the recommendation. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maury. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Scott? Duly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
One quick, but length of time of contract, is it school year to school year? Okay.
Yes.
And Donna, sorry to ask that quick, did you guys sign up for this last year or not?
No, we did not. Our first Medicaid program that we wanted to tackle was Medicaid billing. So this is the second program.
Okay. Other questions? Item 4, consideration of the second phase of security cameras being paid for from the rainy day fund.
So, Mr. Roscoe had asked for Chief Lingenfelder to join us this evening, and I want to personally send my appreciation to him. He spent probably about 2 or 3 days walking through the buildings with the principals, looking at the cameras that we currently had in place, especially here at the high school and at Roosevelt, and then offering additional suggestions to make sure that all the areas were covered with those cameras. And so this is the second phase, kind of covering those areas that we missed at the high school and Roosevelt, and then also those places at the 3 elementaries too. And as Jason and I were talking, I think this has been a dream of Jason's for a long time to get this up and running in the corporation, so we're glad that we can check this off and definitely help his work that he does with the schools and his department and stuff. But we're bringing that forward this evening. You had the bids in there broken down by each of the schools. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Just one quick question. So the rainy day fund, that's the way to do,
Yes, that's what I would propose, because we did not budget this in the operations fund for this year, but for us to be able to go ahead, since they're here working on the phase 1, we can go ahead and get this taken care of and get it ready for the start of the school year.
And so what do you guys think would be expenditures we need to think for the future? And then would we put that into?
Yes.
Okay.
So what will happen is that we've spoken to Dave Hadley, who does wireless generation or wireless technologies, and Dr. Fletcher began working with this company when he was here, purchased the servers. That's kind of where we're at, is that next phase is purchasing new servers. So that would be the next phase. I think what we've kind of looked at after that is the keyless entry. And I'm kind of looking at Jason to kind of think we've not really had.
Jason, we can't see you. You're hid behind the post.
Yeah.
So, but, the thing is what Dave has recommended me, and probably Jason will agree with this, is that corporations now need to put a line item into their operations for school safety. And so that's something that we definitely need to begin to do.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You agree, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's always been a recommendation. Once this is installed, they're electronics. They're going to, at some point, fail for new technology. So you need to have the ability to replace a server. And we can plan later and talk about the cost of each one and even have Dave there and start putting money back for that in that line item. You can use a portion of it from the school safety grant, however you want to do that. Work with Herman and the IT, but you need to plan for each building and start putting money back for that.
And you're good with all placements of all the cameras and?
I'm good with the documents I presented. I don't know what's been presented to you.
And so what Jason did was he signed off, and we took what he signed off on and sent that to Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we getting those matching funds?
Yes, so that's the school safety grant. I'm trying to think, because they've changed that name a little bit. And we do get those. A lot of our funds goes towards school resource officers.
How much are we getting right now?
I want to say 50,000, but that's matching.
That's what's available is 50.
Yeah. And so.
Do we automatically get 50, or is that
No,
something we have to?
You have to write a grant. Apply.
Okay. And so that's something that you're doing, or who does that?
Jennifer Harrison does that, our grant writer. So
Oh,
she
okay,
does that
yeah.
on an annual basis and takes
Okay.
care, and then she monitors that to make sure it's being spent and kind of make sure that, gets pricing for the different components and stuff like that.
Okay, great, great.
Yep.
The biggest downfall is you buy all of this and you let it sit for the next 10 or 15 years expecting somebody. That's why you're where you're at today.
But I might add, I do believe we have a line item of $30,000. Facilities has set up a line item. We've had that for a couple of years, I think.
I'm
But
not
we haven't used it for cameras. You know what I mean? We haven't used it for that type of security.
What have we used it for, Maureen? Do you know? For
Police
Jason?
officers, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's where the money.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it has to be a matching 50,000, so therefore we have to put in 50,000 of projects and they have to put in 50,000. So like, for example, the cameras can now count as part of our matching to get that grant. So And the other thing too that you guys did was during this last $10 million bond, you did the secure entrances on East Lawn and Oak Lawn, and I think that was it, wasn't it? Just those two. Yeah.
Okay. That was part of the big project.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been talked about over the years is a maintenance agreement with somebody. That way you don't have to pay staff to go around at least twice a year to clean them. Or, sorry Jeff, but when you and I were in high school, that was kind of what we hired in to do some of those things. I worked maintenance for the schools as a high school student, and that'd be something simple they could do if you had that kind of staff. You can teach them how to clean them very quickly, very easily, and economically. That way they're useful to your staff.
I have a question for Herman. Hey, Herman, he's got his earphones on.
Herman.
He's probably
I have a
asleep.
question for you. Herman, we were told when the gentleman came on the cameras that we needed to get a new server, and in previous life, I've seen situations where virtual servers were established to save considerable money. Are you guys in that kind of environment? And I think,
We have a virtual server running some software, but it's not, in this particular setup, that keeps our bandwidth from being eaten up with video coming all the way back to the high school. So we're better off having several servers and letting them
okay,
feed
okay,
where they are.
okay.
And now, unfortunately, we are running, I mean, I think this project must have started over 5 years ago. We are getting in that 6 to 7 year. We're not far from meeting it. I don't know what the software version is that they're trying to go to the next model, because there's still some connectivity there. Finish up.
Yeah, there's a lot of finalization that still needs done on some of that as well. And Dave's agreed to do that and walk through with all of us.
Okay.
But yeah, you're better off having a server in each building to save your bandwidth, and then if somebody needs in it, to tap one line, as opposed to 30 cameras coming
All the way
back to
back
one
to the
central
host.
location. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've already asked Dave for our planning for operations budget for 2021 to give us a bid on what that server will cost, so we can begin that discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear from the IT department that they were in accord with what the vendor said.
Yeah, and they were with us on the walkthrough as well, so
Yeah, okay.
it was a good talk. I think we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Other questions from Mr. Lingenfelter?
Chief.
Mr. Work fine.
There you go. Hearing none.
Mr. Lingenfelter lives out on North on 39.
So moved.
Thank you, Maury. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you to all involved for their hard work on making this.
Thank you,
come out.
Jason.
Absolutely.
Next item would be the instructional coaching professional development contract.
Ms. Metzger is going to share about that this evening.
This was a professional development brought back in February before the COVID-19 hit. And it was originally just for our coaches and our elementary administrators. And after basically being off school for so long, we decided that high school and middle school principals would actually benefit from this. And the coaching kind of throws it off. It's not just for coaches. It's looking at the academic gaps of our students, which is going to be more important than ever when we come back. And one of what we've been looking at with the academic committee is what professional development can we provide. So when they come back and we give assessments, how do we use that information? So this is actually an 8-week course that we go through. Her name is Diane Sweeney. She is actually the person that created this. And it doesn't focus on the teachers. So we're used to the coaches focusing on the teacher instruction. What it is focusing on the child and their data and how we help that teacher meet those needs of the students, which we're going to definitely need, and we need training on that. because it is a different approach than just looking at the instructional piece with the teacher. It's looking at that data piece. The cost is $9,600, but if we brought, and I went to compare that with Edge, that would come in, it was $6,000 a day. So if we look at that and we see the comparison, it's 8 weeks. It's with the instructor. So what we do is we'll read a chapter, and then we are actually in a cohort, 15 of us in a cohort, the admin coaches. And what we'll do is we will chat with each other. The instructor will answer our questions, and then that also includes 3 90-minute webinars. So we're actually getting a lot of one-to-one. This is the first time they have done this. Usually they have, we actually went to go to Colorado and go to this. We are saving money. So we did want to go to the 2-day event that she will hold in Colorado. That's all been canceled. So this is the first time they're actually having virtual, and you had to have 5 in the cohort, and we have 15, which is a good group. And to have our questions answered and just to have it personalized for Twin Lakes is something that I think is well worth the money. Title II, it has been earmarked in Title II since the very beginning that I wrote it, the Title II grant. So with this money's out, we will actually still have $51,000 left in Title II to provide extra needed professional development. So the academic committee's looking at that, especially with that technology component. What do we need to support teachers? So we still have that $50,000 from this year. We'll be getting new monies. So we're going to have probably around $85,000 for professional development when it comes down to it. So that's a little bit of what I'm proposing that we're able to provide.
Deb, when you have,
I'm sorry.
oh, okay, thanks. Deb, when you have the money set aside, do you set a special amount of money for, let's say, when we have a new teacher, let's say, that's struggling? Or do you just use that same pot? Because it seems like every year we have 1 or 2 teachers that really could use some professional development, and I don't know exactly how we're able to help them with certain things like classroom management.
Anytime, a principal will say, I really want to send 2 of my teachers to this. I know with your co-teaching at Roosevelt, they have gone to a lot of, so anytime we always have, I try to set aside $20,000 for that. So if it's any, someone we need to bring in, are we going somewhere? So I always say, it would be hard for me to say no to a teacher that wants to go to something. What I've been trying to do is bring them to us. Because it's expensive to send them, but sometimes you can get better deals if you get them, that speaker to come to us, because then you touch more teachers. It's costing with subs, but you have more people that it's covering. But anytime someone's struggling or they're interested in something, we will find the money to send that teacher and support them. So that's definitely important. And I think all the principals know that. Just call me and we'll find a way. Because it's not just Title II. We have a lot of different funds that we can, with our grants, that we can find the money to support those teachers.
Are there enough, do you feel like you have access to a lot of programs out there if you need it? I mean, I've kind of lost track on how much is out there when it comes to, hey, I've got a teacher that's really struggling here. Here's something I'm going to bring in or send them to. Are they?
I think there are.
Yeah,
I think there's key people, and those people kind of fluctuate through the years. But I think there's key people that you could call, and there's definitely now the benefit of consulting firms that if you don't know the answer, you call them and say, I need some help with this. Who would you recommend? And I think in the education field, we're willing to help one another. Even if we don't go to their consulting firm, they have an answer for us. We tried to have, what did we try? And it was outrageously expensive. And they gave us names.
Creating the SEL comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it was
we were like, yeah, we'll figure it out ourselves.
$10,000 a day to come in. We're like, whoa. And we just were, said, that's not something we can afford. And they gave us names of people. They had us in contact. So I think that, that's one benefit of education and educators, generosity to support each other.
Okay, good. I just know that every fall, we seem like we got a couple of teachers, we're kind of like, what are we gonna do here? And I want to make sure we give them training, so that's great. That's
And
great.
at the elementary level, don't the coaches help those first-year teachers quite a bit with the principals?
When will this instructional time take place? Do we have it?
June 20th, if you approve it. It's once a week, they have a chapter to read in, but then when the.
It'll be done before school starts.
Oh, yes.
That's
yes.
what I was getting at.
That would be the first phase, and the
Okay.
second phase is principals and coaches will be working with cohorts of teachers, looking at data, just as they normally do, but we're just giving them some extra training
So how
on,
many hours are we talking about?
in the classroom.
No, for instructional time that we're going to pay the company. You said $10,000?
Yes, it's 8 weeks.
8 weeks of how many hours?
Well, that, it's just at our, basically our self-paced. They, it's basically if you've ever taken a class online, we have 8 weeks that will go through the modules that they present, and then we have 3 90-minute webinars with the
Okay,
instructor.
so there's where your question of time comes in.
Yes,
So,
right. Yeah, I can't put a time on the modules because,
or do we have a limited number? I mean, if 7 more people decide to join, do we have to pay more, or is it a
Yes.
flat fee?
it's $650.
That's what I'm there.
$795 if you have 5 or less.
I think that raises the question, are we approving it at the $10,000
Right.
level? Or are you asking for carte blanche if some more folks come on board?
Right now, I don't want to bring anyone else on board because it's coaches and admin, because we're getting trained ourselves.
Okay.
And it's something that we will work with teachers on, with that professional development to help teachers. So I'm saying I don't want to add, actually, it's a pretty big group right now, but I want K-12 to have exposure. So when we always seem to talk K-8, so we need K-12 so we're all on board with that.
With that in mind, would the board be most comfortable with this recommendation with a $10,000 cap on total cost?
You're basically talking 96 though. Or-
Yeah, the 10, yeah, it won't be more than that. And the quote is 9,600.
Okay.
So do we need to go over the quote?
We shouldn't for any reason that I can think of.
So I mean, do we need to say 10,000, cap it?
Well, if we choose to pick up another person, I mean, I know I don't see, who else we're gonna pick up?
We got 15, right? Do we
I mean,
need
The
more?
administrators are going to train the teachers.
Yeah,
So we're not
it's-
going to push
it's
teachers there.
administrators
It's my
and
job to
coaches.
train my teachers,
Right.
once I'm through it.
So keep in mind, it's with a grant.
Right.
This isn't coming out of any of our education funds or operation funds, this is coming out of a grant that really has to be spent in a
It
certain
does.
time limit, or you lose it.
Well, if
A
it's-
motion to agree.
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, John. Been properly moved and seconded that we agree with this contract. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same.
Michael, quick question before we go on to the
Yes.
next thing. Just thinking about what Deb's saying. Some of the rumors on some of the options when it comes to how to handle the COVID issue is the idea that they might start sooner than. What is the date that people are talking about starting? What is that rumor? I've never heard a date, just earlier.
There is no date out there, yeah,
There's nobody saying
so,
July something.
no, nobody is saying any specific dates.
They're just trying to
think-
tell the young kids to get them back in line.
Yeah, so if they were to end, this idea that they were gonna end early, which was November or something, how soon would you, if just to get that to balance out, what are we talking? How many weeks are we talking to kind of start earlier? Do you think it's 3?
The thing is the way I
2?
understand it is they're not giving any allowances at this point in time for a number of instructional days. It has to be 180 days. So it doesn't really matter when we start or when we end, you have to have 180 days.
They're
And
not
so
getting
that's,
waivers.
yeah.
No
Now, I'm
waivers.
not saying that they won't in the future, but at this point in time, it's a no waivers. And the thing that she shared is that you can do blended models of where you do e-learning / in-session kinds of classes.
I've heard of that too, where that maybe e-learning is going on in, let's say, that November, December, January or something during,
But I think in my take today, and I know Danielle watched it too, the way I understood it was that she said you need to be very careful with the e-learning models or that blended model, because the e-learning side of it needs to be just as rigorous as your in-person classes. So, it's not going to be a sense like we've done with e-learning of 2 to 3 hours per day of instruction. It would almost be, a full-fledged school day.
So on Friday, they're coming out with another document on top of this document.
To see what the new one, okay.
That they're going to talk a little bit about instructional minutes, which goes along with what Mr. Galvin was just saying, because I guess there was some complaints about with the distance e-learning that we may have hit our instructional days, but they don't believe that the schools actually hit their instructional minutes. So now on Friday, we will get a new memo with guidance about what instructional minutes are, what they look like, and how many we are to have in a school day, whether at school or through e-learning.
And also within the guidance, she also said today that that document is fluid. So therefore, there will be ongoing changes to that document as they go further into the summer and as Danielle's alluding to, as more conversation and discussion comes about.
There's already been 5 changes since it came out. When did it come out? Friday?
Friday.
So there's 5 changes so far already.
And and some of those changes were like, for example, originally they had said that you needed to have something behind the bus driver that separated the bus driver from the students. That has now, the bus transportation committee has said, no, that's not a requirement. They're going to take that off. So those, I mean, it's, yeah.
Okay. So we'll see what the next few memos show.
The challenge for us was that they mainly gave everything in that document that all of us have discussed for the past 2.5 to 3 months of possibilities, scenarios. So now what we're trying to do in our administrative teams is go through and say, what's realistic for Twin Lakes, plus also having conversations with our other 3 corporations in White County to kind of say, we need to be consistent here. And also at the same time, get the White County Health Department to sign off on our proposal to say, yes, this is good, so.
And I think another big piece that I would imagine, Deb, you're working on and Mike thinking about is how to increase the rigor of the e-learning. Because that's going to be a key to being successful with that.
And also to throw in TLCTO, having discussion with them of this entire process that we're going through. Right.
And are all the schools in the county going to be working together to try?
Yes. So I have a meeting on Thursday with the 4 superintendents, or all 4 of us are meeting together on Thursday to discuss exactly what you're saying. Try to be as consistent, because we all talk, and if one corporation does something a little bit different than another corporation, we'll hear
Yeah,
about
how many are we going to lose from this corporation because they're doing something different there?
Yeah.
Or vice versa?
Right. So.
Okay,
But
thank you.
there are just, as we've discussed, there's a lot of different things that we're going through right now, so.
Okay. Next item I have would be.
Did we approve that?
We did. I have
Yep.
Mr. Roscoe's the motion and Scott Andrews is the second, carried 7-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Pardon? Yep. Next item on the agenda is the milk bid to go to Prairie Farms Dairy.
So this is the recommendation from Mrs. Craig that we select Prairie Farms for the milk bid for next year.
So moved.
Thank you, Maury. Is there a second? Thank you, Jeff. Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Silent second.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries 7-0.
Who made that motion? Sorry.
Maury,
Maury made it, Jeff seconded.
pay attention.
Slipping on my duties.
Put that Mountain Dew down. Or have some
I was
more.
writing something down.
Item number 7, consideration of resolution for an interfund loan.
So this was something we discussed on Thursday evening last week, and I think, as we said last time when we had the financial issues back in 2011, 2008, I believe it was, or something like that, we did this. This allows us to just borrow from one loan in the corporation to cover expenses in another loan, waiting for our property taxes to come due. So what this is saying here is that mainly we are going to be borrowing from the severance bond 2002 fund, which has sufficient funds to pay our debt payment within the debt services for the 2 bonds that we have. This is not a definite. is just as needed of $800,000 if we need that. We are expecting to get pretty close to our full payout for this June installment from White County. We're still unsure on Carroll County, and so that's mainly why we're asking for this, is to make sure that we have that. If we do end up needing this, we'll report back to you in the July board meeting that we had to do that. And according to state law, this has to be repaid back to the severance bond by the end of this calendar year. So it would have to be paid back by December 31st, 2020.
Per the recommendation, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Maury. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Godlove? Properly moved and seconded. Resolved for the interfund loan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries 7-0. Ongoing activities. First item I have is corporation role responsibilities.
So I reported those on Thursday. We've really not done anything with number 1, number 2. At this point in time, we did discuss a little bit about the school safety tabletop scenario. So we'll try to work with Jason to kind of get some, Chief Lingenfelter to kind of get some ideas of when we can do that. So that's kind of where we're at with those kinds of things.
On corporation role responsibilities, maybe I missed something in my packet, but Kevin has retired. You know, we thank him and congratulate him, but now Denny's taking over, then
Correct.
How is that working? I know your
So-
facilities committee met, but
Right, so we discussed with our facilities team a proposal to move Denny to the facilities director's position and to take Kevin's position and the sports custodial position and combine those two positions into one and make that kind of a maintenance person underneath Denny. So at this point in time, what we are doing is we are researching what maintenance directors are making in the corporations around us. And then I've asked Mr. Godlove to help me kind of put together a package that would be sufficient for those new responsibilities that Denny has. And we would be bringing that to the July board meeting for your consideration.
I was wondered where
Yep.
we were.
Yep.
And then he will be responsible to you.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, or else the assistant superintendent as well, because so he could also be responsible to her if I'm not in the corporation.
Deb,
Oh,
one-
no.
I am.
Mr. Galvin, you're going to prepare a white paper on the Woodlawn Center. And
Yes.
Deb, when is the end of the 21st Century Grant?
This will be our last year,
This school year?
Yeah, when does it end?
this school year.
year?
At the end of this school year.
For 2020,
The 20
2021.
2021
So June
is our
of,
last,
Okay.
so June of 21.
yes.
Is it eligible for renewal?
Yes, I'm writing the grant now, it's due
But didn't you say
in
a
August.
lot more people
There's a
are,
lot of competition, yes.
Yeah, that's what you said.
And
when
now
you-
you have to qualify with being a D or F school and free and reduced, which before, it was just one of those. There's like 3, but those are gonna be the top 2. Well, we qualify for free and reduced, but it's gonna be very competitive. All the Lafayette schools, of course, are coming up for renewal.
So you have to be a what grade?
That's one of the criteria, that they're weighting pretty heavily.
D or F?
And my
F
understanding
school.
too.
We really don't want
Thankfully, we're not
to
a
be, we don't
D or
want to
F
be a
school.
D or F school.
Good news, bad
So
news.
we are
suck
with
for
the
luck
free and reduced
scenario.
qualify.
Deb,
And you'll know-
Didn't I also read where the amount of
The NFL calls
funds is
it
going to be
rebuilding.
lower also?
What we do is we'll write the grant per student.
No, I mean what the state is offering. In other words, the amount that they gave out, I had the understanding, I read somewhere a couple of weeks ago where that amount was going to be
Year to
less.
year, that fluctuates, and it's not even, we could get the grant and then for 4 years, and then the second year, they said no more money. So it's not guaranteed, even if we get it.
Mainly
It's
because
a
of
big
COVID-19.
federal grant that is always on the chopping block.
Yeah.
So you said August we should know?
October, we will
Oh,
know.
October, I'm sorry.
August it is due.
Pardon?
August is the due date for that grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Galvin, would you be kind
Well,
enough to
just
explain-
for the committee's edification, I think they should know that the head of the Boys and Girls Club is paid from that fund. So relative to the life of Woodlawn, that may have an impact in our thinking. if that goes away.
Did I hear something on the radio today? Woodlawn, the Boys and Girls Club's doing something special for students for the summer?
Robotics, it's a 50,
No, they were talking, there was something on WMRS today about picking up packets at Woodlawn.
oh, yes,
What do they call
yes.
them,
They are
packets?
creating activities that students can pick up and do at home. That's one of the.
Instructional packets.
Yes.
Good.
Mr. Galvin, would you give us, you very kindly, I believe, provided us with a calendar of.
Yes.
I think
So-
that might be worth drawing everyone's attention to as we have questions about the way things are going to open back up before we close for the evening.
Right. So our administrative team met this afternoon. We began kind of taking what the DOE has sent out and kind of put together a timeline. This is, once again, I want to stress, this is a fluid situation. So therefore, these dates and these times may change. You know, they may speed up, they may push back a little bit. But this laid out a lot of the activities that we're going to be doing over the next 2 months, when we kind of have some deadlines for different committees to report back, and to kind of have that proposal to be able to take to the White County Health Department, or to be able to take to the TLCTO to begin having their input, and to kind of flesh it out with them when we're going to bring it to you as a rough draft. And what I want to point out to you is keep in mind that our next board meeting will be July 14th. So I'm saying is that we will probably not have our final plan on July 14th, okay? We're going to have a rough draft, but it's still going to kind of be a work in progress at that time as well. But we want to be able to bring to you at least kind of where are we headed, what are we seeing with those different components of academics, workplace safety, health and safety, and financially, where it's going to be impacted at. So I've laid that out because I wanted the board to kind of know what the timeline's going to look like, how we're kind of setting up that accountability piece to kind of say, hey, we need this information and those kinds of things, so.
We appreciate the transparency and the information.
The other thing too, Mr. Hanna, is I think Gloria asked about administrative guidelines, and I wanted to report back that I did get a hold of Mr. Grazer, and he said the administrative guidelines usually take about a year to complete because some of the larger sections, they split apart. It's a much quicker process than the policies were because we do not have to bring them to the board for approval. I spoke to the principals today at our administrative meeting, and they said that with everything else that they've got on their plates right now, they really wanted to not start administrative guidelines until after Labor Day. So, so I appreciated, I appreciated their input.
Well, and my question at the work session was before COVID,
Right.
in March, because we had
Yeah.
to stop talking.
Yeah.
But absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not
So-
speaking to the full board, but they have enough on it.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is kind of go with that starting date, and then I'll lay out, much like I did with this, a timeline for the board to kind of know what sections we're gonna be covering and how we're gonna be progressing through that, so.
Mr. Galvin, I'm looking at your item 8, it says communication with community and parents about extracurricular requirements for summer programs. The actual document itself lays out things, and I realize it's fluid, for 3 levels, not just summer programs, so it seems like that's a bit misleading in terms of that box.
So what that is referring to is just our summer programming. So like sports will start up on July 1st. We have band, we also have choir. So at that point in time, there will be a letter going out to those students who participate in those programs, notifying those parents of what kinds of protocols we're going to put in place for those programs.
What about the rest of the?
Then the next item is further down on, let's see here, number 15, communication and community and parents about the COVID-19 2020-2021 reopening of schools proposal.
Oh, so that includes the athletics as well at
Yeah,
that point?
that one will actually be, how are we going to reopen school? What is that going to look like? And so at that point in
And
time.
that's top to bottom, everything?
That's
So
top to bottom,
it's
everything.
this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
So
clarification.
we really wanted we feel like that, we want parents to feel comfortable with the programs that are going to be happening this summer. And the DOE is laid out, she even shared today that document seemed very heavy on sports, but she said it also mainly encompassed the choir and the band as well. And I know Danielle's committee's work is going to meet tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow afternoon, I'm meeting with Mr. Adams, as well as Victoria Saylor and Sam Wells to talk about those extracurricular activities, and Danielle is going to be joining us on that
Good,
too.
good.
To kind of lay that process out.
Okay.
Because that would be really our first test. In my mind, it's our first test of what the school year is going to look like, and it can kind of help us tweak our system of, okay, now how do we what the school year going to look like.
Well, there was a smiley face in that, in the extracurricular activities, when it said in that first session, contact sports, no contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
She
was,
did say, she is coming out, she said today that that document ends phase 3, August 15th. So she came out with that now to try to get us through the summer, since we are allowed, it's July 6th actually, is day 1 of summer sports. So, or summer workout, or whatever we call it. But
Conditioning.
she's planning to come out with more phases as we get closer to the August 15th date. She just wanted to give us some guidelines so we could get started and get ourselves together before we start entering in. So I think that sports is gonna be hard. So Kent and I had a conversation today, it's gonna be rough, but, because they don't want you to really have contact. Well, all sports have contact besides like volleyball. So we're really gonna struggle with that. But there are very specific guidelines that she laid out, and I think that once we're back in session, they'll loosen that up a little bit. So her goal is just, this is supposed to get you through August 15th, and then we will come out with more once we get more guidance.
August the 15th, and we're going to start the school on the 10th?
thank you. I would like for you to pass along, leastwise from this board member, our appreciation. I think I can speak for our board. When you even peruse this document, which has changed 5 times since you said it was initiated last Friday, this is really overwhelming. I don't think the public realizes, or I don't know how you could realize it unless you pick this up and try to read it and stay
38
awake.
pages.
And how much our administrators, our teachers, our students, everybody in the school corporations, our janitors, our kitchen people, how much they are going to be giving of themselves this year. And to
And
your
have
point
given.
on social emotional learning issues, we're going to need that on steroids this year. So I want to thank you for bringing that information forward at the working session. And I think I speak for the whole board. Kudos to everybody involved, because our hearts are with you, because our kids are important.
Oh,
And this is important. And we really appreciate all your efforts. Missy, your staff as well, and all the grade schools as well.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
We got a question.
Actually, it's not a question.
Or-
I don't mean to put a stick in your spokes, but something you need to consider. You may not be aware, NDOT is starting 2 projects in the city limits.
Oh, yeah.
That affect their transportation. So that's something I would rather, I have another meeting in the morning. I have about 6 meetings a day anymore. But that's something that we probably, as soon as I get through that, need to bring to you guys and your transportation. It's going to reroute a lot of things.
Actually, I have you on my timeline to meet with you, because the other thing too that I shared with Chief Lingenfelter is that I'm concerned about, usually the first week of school, we have a lot of parents who bring their kids, and with transportation issues and social distancing, I figure that's going to be a bigger issue than normal. And so several of the principals are going to meet with Chief Lingenfelter and really kind of discuss all that, and that will probably be a good time.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have an update on the 24 project from Super Test out to Range Line. Then in about a week, we're going to shut down by the Methodist Church in a nice big L over around Railroad.
How
It's
long
not
is
us.
that to last?
November.
November.
Cross
This
your
is not the
fingers.
city, this is the Department of
Okay.
Transportation. The city hasn't.
Well, we're piggybacking on
We're
to their,
piggybacking water
On railroad.
project, But this is
For water and
NDOT.
sewer.
It's their rules, their project. I've had many discussions in the last 2 weeks with them, so.
I know it was a mess going out to Walmart today. Boy, they had things blocked
Oh,
out.
hang on, today's the easy day.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm concerned about, and I hope that update is the start for Roosevelt, what we're gonna do out front there. It's, hopefully that, we can get that done, but that'll be that update, that they're gonna grind that out, repave that, and move them out of the way. But,
that's phase 1. So
well, that's a whole different project.
Yeah.
That is project 1. Project 2 has 2 phases that involve Harrison and Railroad and Broadway and Washington. So it's, so I want you to know that early going into your talks with everything, so.
Thank you for the added stress, I appreciate it.
I guess they just what you needed.
I get it, I live with one of those principles, right?
But Jason, it will be beautiful
Right.
when it's done.
It's going to be wonderful.
I don't know, they're taking the flowers out, aren't they?
Well, let's.
Oh, in the middle?
Yeah, I've got that meeting in the morning. Go there.
Great.
It's not a roundabout, right?
No, that's in a couple of years.
Oh,
The other-
that's it.
We'll panic
The
about
only thing
that.
we're missing is an asteroid at this point in time in my life. Would anybody like to jump in? No, I just want you and your planning to know, I'm going to relay that, as we have those meetings, we get through that, so you can plan accordingly, and Joe's that can over with the bus routes. Thanks.
Good luck.
Just an item for information, our next work session and board meeting should come after we enter stage 5, where we could, if we so chose, have a public meeting again. I will reach out to everyone closer to time. We can decide whether we want to throw it open to the public again, or whether this might be a better fit option for at least another month. But there's really no point to having that discussion now until we get a little closer to next month and see what the government tell us we can do. I have no further issues at this time or items to bring before the board.
I make a motion to adjourn.
John, thank you, Maury.
Thank you, Herman.
Second that we adjourned, all in favor, please
Chief,
signify by saying.
principals,
Aye.
Benny,
Opposed, the same.
Donna, Jim Bob, Mary Ellen.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
What's that?
Well, since our buses passed all of inspection just before school closed, we shouldn't have trouble with our next